Captain on the bridge.
Captains, we are back on the bridge, and wow, that is a lot of news coming out today. Not only Star Trek Online, but just Star Trek in general. There's so many things that we want to go over, but wow, we'll just go through it as best as we can, Captains. This time we're back to Star Trek Online, and a blog was released. This is something that was being discussed a couple of streams back from Cryptic, which was a rework of the Intel specialization. So what we're going to do is go over that blog, drop my 2 ECs, and also talk about the power that I actually do love using and don't mind using, really, from that specialization. So on screen. So here it is, intelligence report. Around the spring of 2014, we began development of the first ever Captain specialization that would appear in Star Trek Online, alongside the release of our second expansion, Delta Rising, which arrived later in that same year, or later that same year. At that time, our vision of what a Captain specialization would and could be in the game was a bit different from how players ended up engaging with them, and what expectations would come to exist regarding their performance, availability, and overall gameplay impact. As we have continued developing additional Captain specializations over the years, between then and now, we have gained a better understanding of these expectations and the gameplay impact that is expected to come from these features. And now, with that knowledge in hand, we have decided it's far overdue to revisit the first of these Captain specializations and give it just a bit of a polish that its peers have benefited from over the years. Now, they did this recently with the command, and let me tell you, captains were just late to the party. I loved command when it first came out. Everything about it, especially concentrate firepower. And because they gave it a buff, of course, and the whole thing came out where it was so good that torpedo boats just even got a better boost. Of course, everyone's using it, but I've always loved it. When it came to Intel, though, there was some things that I did like. And captains, what I'll do is I'll link this blog in the description below. So feel free to kind of go over it, but we'll just go over some of the other things here. Just here. So the pitch, as this time we've chosen to focus on simple revisions with a focus on just a few design goals. Increase ease of use, increase feeling of usefulness, increase impact on gameplay. Again, for me, when it comes to this is a game, I like the sort of feel behind them regardless. Like surgical strikes, one of my favorite Intel powers. I just use it because it just sounds cool. And visually, I like it because it actually lessens the spam. And of course, mechanically, it increases your crit. Having said that, a lot of people were finding it underwhelming, but for me, it was fine because with the slowing of firing rate of the phasers or whatever beams you're using at the time, cannons, it actually felt more Star Trek to me. So that's kind of why I didn't really mind it. Again, for how we play this game nightly of the TFOs that we just do on advanced, for the most part, it does fine. But this sounds like it's going to really help as you're leveling up, especially when you have a ship that has specializations. So, and we'll just leave that for you captains to go over there. For the timing, the changes that will be detailed herein are scheduled to arrive on PC with a patch on March 17. So that's in next week, I believe. Console platforms are scheduled to receive these changes as well, likely within the following month or two. Exact dates are not available at this time. Console players always being pushed. So here they are, captains. I'm just going to kind of go over the ones that I would sort of use normally. Like I said, we'll just link the blog in the description. So Intel ship mechanic, gather Intel active sensor arrays. Now takes 6 stacks of penetrating scan to cause vulnerability of any rank of ship instead of varying by rank. Duration of vulnerability increased from 15 seconds to 30 seconds. Stacks of penetrating scan will not be applied with a target has vulnerability or if any exposed ability is presently active. All exposed abilities are now immediately expired any existing vulnerability in addition to other effects. NPCs no longer benefit from a lockout period after vulnerability expires and may instead be immediately start rebuilding stacks of penetrating scan. There is now benefit from a 30-second lockout increase from 15 seconds. So here, while a most common player feedback included suggestion of moving the stacks of penetrating scan to being targeted, we chose not to pursue this for now. For now, keep that in mind, for now. So this may even be revisited after this goes live for them to sort of see how it goes, is how I'm taking that, as both removes the multiplayer aspect of being able to build stacks more quickly with multiple players scanning, and also makes it similar enough to the command specs inspiration mechanic to invade on that identity. This also trends into major rework territory, which we chose to avoid where possible with this particular set of updates. Instead, we're speeding up the ability's application and improving its reusability, as well as cleaning up some messy stacking behavior that previously existed. When it comes to powers for me, captains, I just try to use the ones that I would sort of fit to on screen or what I've seen on screen. So something like this, like evade target lock. Well, it kind of sounds like, you know, Helm, evasive maneuvers. So that's kind of cool. So base duration of disable untargetable increase from 1, 2, 3 to 3 to 2, 3, 4, and now scales with control expertise. Not bad. There's that intelligence team. Of course, threat reduction values at all ranks have been doubled, so that's really good. If threatening stance is not active on the recipient of this ability, this effect is doubled again. Jeez. Defense buff increase from 10, 15, 20 to 30, 40, 50. Bad. Subspace beacon, not really use that, but something we may mess with in the future. Added brief period of untargetable after teleport. A electromagnetic pulse probe. I believe this power is an unconventional systems proc, so this could see some good usage definitely. Lightspeed increased by 50% on all ranks. Add electrical damage to probe's pulses while in transit to destination. Holds within 2 clicks, a probe will take some damage now. Damage now scales with particle gen skills. Ionic Turbulence. I used to use this back in the day with conjunction with Gravity Well. This was hilarious when you used it on the gate in IS, in Infected Space. The thing would be, I can remember it, the thing would be like dancing in place. It was hilarious seeing this huge object just move about willy-nilly. It was hilarious, but projectile now travels to its destination approximately 3 times as quickly. Interesting. Damage resistance debuff increased slightly at all ranks, now scales higher with Ox power. So it sounds like it's a good power for EPG or Saifu, but I'm not a Saifu cap. I've always said that, Caps. I'm not. My Saifu's pretty weak sauce, so. But I did use this back in the day, and it was hilarious. So Kinetic Magnets. See, this always sounded good. So what do they do here? Increase kinetic resistance debuff at all ranks from 20, 25, 30 to 30, 40, and 50. Durations of all ranks are now normalized at 15 seconds. Number of mines, torpedoes, captains, you know I love my torpedoes, that can be drawn to an affected target has been increased from 3 to 6. The range at which mines torpedoes can be drawn to an affected target has been increased from 5 clicks to 10 clicks. And this ability no longer has a fragile damage cap removed in any previous update. Such a clever ability that sees so little use. Many players that offered feedback did not seem to know that the fragility limits were removed long ago. Hopefully, these numeric improvements may allow it to find a place among players that enjoy using kinetic damage to defeat their foes. I'll defer to the more knowledgeable captains, but right. And at least maybe players curious enough of its potential to take another look at it. I'll have to ask around about this, but I've maybe used this a couple of times because it sounded cool. So, surgical strikes. Here we go. Increased damage multipliers at all ranks. Rank 1 went up by approximately 30%, rank 2 by about 40%, and rank 3 by 50%. Standardize the amount of critical chance and accuracy at all ranks to 30% of both. Added a scaling amount of critical severity to all ranks. Rank 1 plus 40, rank 2 plus 60, rank 3 plus 80. Ooh, not bad, I think. Sounds cool. All I care about. Updating this power was tricky, of course, since the improvements made to beam overload a few years back. Its identity has been mirrored. Coupled with poor numeric performance, the ability languished unused. This was especially true for high-end players who already itemized for high critical hit chance, as there comes a point where more plus crit H isn't a meaningful choice for your build. Interesting how, again, they are very cognizant of high-end players. While the boost to the damage multiplier was a bit of a no-brainer, this would not address the underlying use case for those high-end players, and so an additional critical severity boost has been rolled into the ability. With this added, our hope is that this ability will now be a viable choice to some degree for players at all progression levels. Again, I've always used this. This is just welcome for me. I love it because of how it slows down the firing rate and increases your crit chance, crit severity, as mentioned there. But also, with the less visual spam, it just kind of almost matches on screen a little bit more, in my opinion. There's that. And transport warhead. Now, this sounded cool. This reminded me, of course, of that episode where Voyager transported a torpedo onto the Borg scout ship. So let's see what they did here. Removed firing arc requirements. Interesting. Recharge time reduced from 30 seconds to 15 seconds. Of course, JR is, of course, Jeremy Randall. By giving players an ability that removes the firing arc restrictions on one of their weapon types, our hope is that this ability has a useful niche it can fill, especially for ships on the lower end of maneuverability that wish to use torpedoes. Alongside the drastic reduction of the ability's cooldown, it is now more readily usable with more frequency. Truthfully, this ability could benefit from further review and tuning, but the complexity of its underlying structure prevented much additional improvements without a drastic rebuild at this time. So my feeling is they're going to roll this out. They're going to see again what sort of feedback they get from the players, and mostly probably from the high-end players, because they're the ones that are going to mostly be letting know how these changes do. Again, for me, captains, when I use these things, it's more just for fun. Again, let's be honest. Let's be 100% honest. Star Trek Online is not that hard of a game. And I've always said this, the end game is 100% made up. So for me, and the way I play, on any of the builds that I use, any of this would work. I just have to synergize them. You know, like Surgical Strikes would just go with a beam build. Transport Warhead and the Kinetic Magnet, of course, put that on a torpedo boat. Now, this is funny enough because I have a series of ships that I want to go through that are very intel heavy. So this will probably give us a chance to try them out and see how they do. But there it is, the blog, captains. Again, just want to drop my 2 ECs on this. Again, this goes live here for us on PC March 17th. And of course, on console, this will hit about a month or two, as they mentioned. So there you go, captains. I'm really happy that they did this. It's been something that they mentioned a couple months back, and they said, well, we'll see how it goes. And now they did it. So to me, what that's signifying is they're really, really trying their best. They admit it. You know, there's some things that they just can't do without sort of spending more time on that. And Jeremy had mentioned before that if they spend time and resources on something like this, it's going to take away from their bread and butter. and their bread and butter is ships. Period, point blank. So this is welcomed. This is great. And I hope that these changes will make a lot of captains happy. It makes me happy. I mean, again, I've used it before. I think I used it on a recent build with Surgical Strike. But now I may have to revisit the Kinetic Magnet and the Transport Warhead just for fun, just to see how it does. So captains, we'll leave it there. Again, we'll leave the link of the blog down below. We just want to throw in our 2 ECs and see, captains, let us know what your thoughts is. It is good, is bad. Of course, comment, like, subscribe so that we can reach to more captains, and of course, share our love for Star Trek that way. With that said, captains, we'll leave it on this note.
Live long and prosper.